So this is one of the new classes that Momentum's rolled out. I'm actually going to put in the chat a quiz for you guys to take online. So Dia, maybe you'll have to, I'll send it to you, Dia, and that way you can take it because it looks like you're in the car. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that in there. In a couple minutes, we'll click on that quiz. I want you guys to test your own emotional intelligence, right? It's a quick little 15-question quiz, and we'll get to that in a couple minutes, but let me go ahead and do a share screen. Daniel, I thought you had taken this class before.
I think I might have, but I'm just kind of reviewing.
Yeah, so that
This
was
is
probably
about where I started with the middle of the thing last fall. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay, cool. That's the thing about momentum classes. You can take them over and over again. So, so this class is kind of different. We don't oftentimes get into, the emotions or the behaviors, right? Because it's a little bit deep for a lot of us. But at the end of the day, how emotionally intelligent or emotionally mature are we, right? And then, digging into that, and it's not only for you as the agent, but for the client, right? To understand where the client's coming from and their emotional intelligence, and how they deal with things and stress and, negotiating or home, repairs, et cetera, et cetera. And so there's some really good thought-provoking questions in the material that I hope you guys will take the time to actually read those questions and really think about. Even if you only took one question and you applied that to your scripts and dialogues that you used in your interactions with your clients, I think it would set them up for a better experience and set you up for a better experience. I know for those of us that have some seniority, we can think about a transaction where the client did not have a high level of emotional intelligence, and then that changed how we reacted to the situation as well. So the purpose of the class is to increase your emotional intelligence and your awareness of it. Why am I feeling this way, right? I actually have, there's a chart in the materials you guys are going to get, but I actually have on my desktop a little graph that has smiley faces, and then smiley faces, they're either happy, sad, whatever, right? And there's all kinds of different emotions. And a lot of times, take anxiety, for example. We feel anxious, but really when you stop and look at anxiety, there's a whole lot of other emotions that are tied to that. Maybe it's fear, maybe it's, loneliness, maybe it's sadness, maybe it's anger, irritation, right? So there's all kinds of other things that and I think as a society, we just throw words out, right? But we don't really identify, what am I truly feeling? And then what's the root of it? What's causing that to happen? And so if we're human beings and we're experiencing that, so are our clients. And so how do we figure out how to help them identify that and then, help them process it? And so the expectation is that you'll feel more confident to incorporate the intelligent sales strategy, which we're going to cover today, to have a better practice, and just, grow as a human being, right? If we're not growing, we're dying, right? So the results, so we want to gain an understanding of what emotional intelligence is. We're going to cover the 5 competencies. We're going to take a quiz, and then there is a quiz in the materials as well, but the online one's really simple to do. Concepts, ideas, tools, right, to understand, manage, and use emotional intelligence. Thought-provoking content and exercises. So again, that stuff's in the materials. So like I said, if you even just took one of those questions out of the materials and implemented that into your transactions, I think you'd see a big difference in how you interact with your clients. Some scripts, right? That's momentum. We always give you scripts and dialogues. And then some techniques to enhance or improve your own emotional intelligence. So we're going to go there, right? We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about what does that look like to become more emotionally intelligent. Begin to build emotional intelligence strategy into your business, and then take away from the course that you're going to be begin to use this in your practice, in your transactions. And at the end of the day, the last couple words, the best customer experience, right? That's what our objective is in any real estate transaction. And as Daniel said at the beginning of the call, is that I want to be their realtor for life. And so how do we be the realtor for life? We got to create the best customer experience that we possibly can. Okay, so I bolded these words. So understand, manage, and use emotional intelligence. Okay. And then understand what emotional intelligence is. And then how do we have self-awareness, right? How do we know what we're feeling and how we're behaving? Am I feeling triggered? Am I feeling neutral? Am I feeling, calm? And then how do we self-regulate that, right? We're going to dig into that. And then how do we implement that into our business? So I'd like you guys, to go ahead and click on the link, themindfultools.com, that's in the chat box, and let's take a couple minutes and answer the questions, and let's test. You'll go on there, you'll answer, there's 15 questions, answer those, and then hit the button that says calculate your emotional intelligence, and then let's have a little discussion about it. And Monique, I will send you the materials. Oh, oh, Daniel's video went off. Okay.
I'm not sure I got the material, Sarah.
You didn't get it?
Would you have sent it this morning?
Yep.
All right, I'll go look. Don't double do.
Let's see, I sent it to roberta@thebossteam.com.
That's a really old, bad email.
Where would you like me to send it?
robertaboss@remax.net.
Okay. I need to take that one out because that's the first one that pops up for me for you. So
yeah, I did get it.
Well, now you got it again. Sorry.
Okay.
I hit send.
But I'm trying to get people to stop using that when it's still so popular out there for people.
Well, it's the first one that pops up, and your Remax one's the third one. So I'll have to make note of that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, you guys tell me. No worries, Monique. You're fine. You guys tell me. Witness protection mode. You guys tell me when you're done with the quiz, and we'll have a discussion. If you want to talk about it. You don't have to give scores if you don't want to.
Sarah's my camera back on. I could block my camera while I was doing that survey.
You're good. I see you.
Okay.
Where's the survey, Sarah?
In the chat box. Mary, I think I got a 51 when I did it, so, which is okay, right? We're average. As long as I'm not below, right? I think that's a good thing. So I got room to improve. Oh, Jennifer, you got a 61. Way to go, lady.
Writing
That's
stuff.
awesome. All right, 48, 52. Okay, cool. Yeah,
I don't see it in mine for some reason.
In your chat, go all the way to the very top. It was the first thing I posted in there.
Oh.
I can post it again if you want. There we go. I just sent it to you.
Okay. Gotcha.
So I think for me, I actually want to take it again, because I always, when I take quizzes like that, I always tend to be harder on myself than I probably need to be, right? And I think I was in kind of a mood the day I took it too. And so I think, does that change from depending? I don't know. And so, yeah, so I think, those are all good answers. So we got room to grow, right? Where it looks like we're all pretty average in there. So let's go back to the PowerPoint. So how'd you feel? Before we do that, how'd you guys feel taking that? Did you feel a little anxiety?
No.
No?
Well, I think as salespeople, we're all pretty good with people, but some of us don't like conflict or high emotions as much as maybe we're not actors or artists,
Mm-hmm.
Myself down when I felt anxious.
So Jennifer posted that she had to read a book at her job. My reaction to being assigned with the book was to answer enough to get my score at that time. Okay, fair enough. So yeah, I mean, I felt myself feeling a little bit judgmental of myself, right? And maybe, again, being harder on myself than I needed to be, and how do I really genuinely deal with things, and judging myself, right? And giving myself a lower score because I'm beating myself up. And so I think, those are all those emotions that you feel. We want to take that into consideration, and how does that affect our client, right? Or the people we're interacting with. I went to the Workman Success Leverage event virtually. What has it been, 2 weeks ago already? And one of the guest speakers, his name is Chad Hymas, and he's a motivational speaker. He was not a motivational speaker at the beginning of his life. He just wanted to be a rancher and a cowboy. He unfortunately suffered a tragic accident with a tractor and left him paraplegic. And so anyway, part of his presentation was meeting people on their level. And so, when you have someone who's in a wheelchair, do you stand and loom over them, or do you kneel and go eye to eye with them? And so when the next speaker came up, who's a guy named Kurt Weisner, he did exactly that. And it was so powerful to see this man who was mobile kneel down and meet Chad on his level. And so when we think about that, through the whole presentation that Chad was talking about, he was giving good references about, his kids, right? And how, you yell at your kids, let's go, let's go, let's go, right? And the first time you're like, okay, it's time to get ready. The next time, hurry up. And then by the third, fourth time, you're exploding at them, right? And instead of doing that, how about getting on their level? What are they doing? What are they so enthralled with that they're not listening to you? And so we're so quick in our society to just throw blame or judgment, or you're doing it at me, right? Be the victim. You're doing this to piss me off. And in reality, are we getting on their level? Are we truly matching them where they're at? And so I think that that's so critical when we're dealing with clients is, are we at their level? Do we understand where they are? And Daniel, I would challenge you with For Sale by Owners to take a different approach. Try to understand where they're at. Why are they selling for sale by owner? What is their financial situation, right? Get on their level so that we can create a better experience. Because at the end of the day, what we're doing is we're servants, right? We are serving people, and what we serve is to help them with their real estate needs. Good morning, Lenora. I will forward you the materials before I go to back to the share screen.
Good, thank you.
You're welcome. Let me do that right now.
My other appointment canceled, so I can jump in.
Okay, awesome. Well, glad to have you here. So is it Lenore Schultz at Gmail or Lenore Schultz 1 at Gmail?
Either one of those, but don't put the T in my last name.
Okay, got it. I don't know why, and I got old emails for you too, so need to clean up my contact list there.
I will get back with you later and tell you which ones are good.
All right, awesome. Okay, so coming back to why did this jump? All right. Okay, so emotional intelligence, the truth. Decisions are based on emotions. Read that again. Decisions are based on emotions, and emotions drive our decisions while logic justifies it. So that's a pretty deep thought, right? That's pretty deep. So decisions are based on emotion. How am I feeling, right? That's going to drive my decision. And I can think about myself sometimes making decisions when I'm in a heated emotion, right? And sometimes that's good, sometimes it's not, right? You make a decision when you're mad. Do you regret that? Yeah, sometimes, right? Same thing if you make a decision when you're sad or you feel stressed or you feel pressured. And so think about your buyers right now. Do they feel pressure with writing offers and trying to get those offers accepted? I would guess yes, right? And that's a very emotionally charged space to be in, right? And then what if they get buyer's remorse, right? We got to deal with that, right? Got to talk them off the ledge to keep the deal together. Okay. So then emotions drive our decisions. But logic justifies them. And so I think that there's a lot of meat to that we could noodle on and talk about. And it's kind of the overarching theme of this class. So our 5 core competencies that we're going to cover. And so we're going to start with the middle here. What do we got in the chat? I don't know. I can't see the chat when you put that in there. So if it's something urgent, interrupt me and we'll talk about it. So we start here with self-awareness, right? And so that's the most important thing, is that we have self-awareness. I think all of us can think of someone in our lives that has zero self-awareness, right? What does it mean to be self-aware? So it's being able to detect and identify, right, what we're feeling and why we're behaving the way we are. And so again, go back to the word anxiety. And I think all of us have probably felt anxiety at some point in our lives, but what go deeper than that, right? Is it really anxiety, or is it fear? Is it sadness? Is it loneliness? Is it stress, right? And so identify, right? Identify what you're actually feeling. We got to detect it. We got to be aware that, hey, something's off, right? Something's amiss in my behavior right now. And then can I identify it, what that is, right? So that's having good self-awareness. And then we got to understand, what's the root of it? Why am I being triggered? Why am I feeling this way? And what can I do to change it? Okay. So then we have control and adapt, right? So self-regulation. So we understand, we've identified, now what am I going to do to regulate it? Now, again, some of us can think of someone in our immediate sphere that doesn't regulate, right? They're not aware, and they just go out and they do what they want to do and they don't care about the consequences, right? They don't care about the damage that they cause, right? And then, but I'm going to jump over here to social skills. So this is building rapport and being able to connect with people, right? I think, again, all of us can think of someone in our lives who has zero social skills, right? They're awkward. It's uncomfortable to be around them. They can't interact, right? They don't connect. And then do we have empathy? I would guess at least one of you on this call is an empath, right? Meaning that you feel everything, right? You go out into the world and people's emotional vomit just gets all over you, right? And then you come home with that, and you might even cry or feel sadness that you don't even know why you're feeling it, because someone you interacted with threw up on you, right? They emotionally vomited on you, and so now I've got that and I can feel everything. Not a bad thing, right? But you can learn to regulate that. You can learn to protect yourself so that you have a shield when they come at you with their emotional vomit, right? And then we skip back over here to motivation, okay? And we're going to dig into each of these, what the 5 core competencies are. So the next slide, right? Self-awareness. So this is the process of being able to detect or identify, right, your own emotions and understand the root of their existence. Then to regulate that, right? So recognize and respond in a positive and productive way. And then again, we kind of touched on social skills. And then the empath, right? The empathy. We want to make sure when we apply empathy to a real estate transaction, this is the process of cultivating a better understanding of the client's desires, right? And their emotions, their needs in that, okay? And then the emotions of everybody else in the transaction. We've all dealt with an agent or a loan officer or a title company, that there's been emotions there, right? And it hasn't been a smooth process. And we're going to dig into kind of some of the typical responses to those situations. And then what's the motivation? So this is the process of gaining clarity of your own as well as the clients that are the drive during the home buying process, right? And there's a couple stages that are very emotional. Obviously, writing the contract and negotiating, your home inspection, the appraisal process, and then getting to the closing line, right? There's so much emotion involved in that. And for both sides, right? The sellers have just as much emotions as the buyers do, okay? All right, so how do we understand, manage, and use? Okay, so the doing, right? So we start at the top here. So we got to seek to understand what is the emotion I'm feeling, okay? And then I have a choice. I can either self-regulate or I cannot. Okay, that comes down to action, right? That's the use of the self-regulation, and then that becomes a habit, right? Something that we do over and over again becomes a habit, and that ultimately builds our character and then leads to our legacy, right? And so that's all part of the becoming. Okay, we got to identify first, and then we got to make a choice. Do I want to change, right? Do I want to regulate this or do I not? And I would guess that there's going to be times when we don't want to self-regulate, right? That our anger or our behavior, our choices in that moment are warranted. I could think about when I got divorced, how angry I was, right? But I used that anger to fuel my decisions, right? To make choices that got me out of an unhappy marriage. Now, I had a choice when I got out of the marriage to stay angry, right? Or self-regulate and get through the anger. But in the moment, the anger served me, right? It served as a motivator to make hard choices, to make hard decisions, right? And so I think, sometimes anger is a good thing, right? That's okay, right? And even in a real estate transaction, there might be times when that's warranted. I would say probably not as many, right, as getting divorced. So just, how do we be level-headed so that we can represent the client's needs, but also use enough of the emotions to drive the transaction? All right, so in your guys' materials on page 7 and 8, I would highly encourage you to come back to these pages. There's only 4 questions up on the slide, but there are actually, I think there's 10 or 15 questions in your material. And these are some really self-provoking or thought-provoking questions, right? So again, tying back to the quiz, these go a little bit deeper with that. So how do you react to people? Do you judge them at first glance? Our society, we're taught from the very moment that we're born to judge. Think about that. We're taught to judge whether it's good, bad, acceptable, pretty, lovable, unacceptable, dangerous, right? And so some of those judgments are good, because they keep us safe, right? But how many times do we judge someone and look at them and immediately form some kind of an opinion about them? I'm guilty of it, right? I'm totally guilty of it. And so, do you take the time to get to know people? Do we look at that and get out of judgment and into curiosity, right? And look at that situation and think, can I learn from this, right? What can I learn from it? I remember having a friend that would seek out the most interesting person in the room because he wanted to get to know them. Because what can I learn from you? Right. And so I personally love the get out of judgment and get into curiosity. It's one of my favorite affirmations or sayings that I heard when I first got into real estate from the great Howard Britton. And so then number two, how do you act in the work environment? Do you give others a chance to shine, or do you claim all the recognition for yourself? How do you react to stressful situations? Okay. Do you keep your emotions under control, or do you explode? And then the last question on the slide is, do you take responsibility? That's a big one, right? Taking responsibility for how we behave, saying you're sorry, right? Or do you shift the blame to everybody else? Are you a victim and everything's happening to you or at you? I have a sibling that the whole world is conspiring against her, right? And so it's very hard to have a relationship with her because I am not in that space, right? And so, I know all of you guys can think of someone like that everything's always happening to them, okay? So I would highly encourage you to take the time to read through these questions and really get honest with yourself, right? Where are you at, with these the self-evaluation, and then how does that apply to your real estate business, and how do you take that and now put that into practice in your business? So understanding the self-awareness. So there's on the last 2 pages of the materials, all the things that they're quoting and referencing, there are sources in there. So if y'all wanted to go and take that a little bit deeper, you have everything that they're quoting in here, you have access to. Okay. So understanding the emotions in others and communicating our understanding of these emotions requires us to be in touch with our own feelings. Yikes, right? Feelings. So we have to be in touch with our own feelings. We got to understand, we got to have that empathy, right? Before we can understand the emotions of other people and communicate that. So then the questions up there, the 3 things to detect, recognize the oncoming emotion, identify, define what the emotion is, right? And then understand it. What's the root, the trigger, the event, whatever's happening that is causing that, right? Causing it. It could be something old, right? It could be something new in the situation. So we want to identify, right? And then understand what's the root of it. Okay, so self-awareness. So continuing with the understanding, and so we're gonna dive into this acronym. And so CLEAR, right, is the acronym. So that stands for calm. So I'm asking myself every day, am I in a calm state of mind? Do I feel level-headed or neutral? Am I emotionally charged? So am I in a situation that's emotionally charged? If you're negotiating a contract or going on a listing appointment, it's an emotionally charged moment, right? It just is by nature. Okay. The approach, do I have a plan? Right. Depending on where I am with the first 3 questions, now do I have a plan to handle it? Right. To what's my response? Right. And then am I ready to respond in a positive and productive response? I love caller ID on cell phones, right? Because if you've got an emotionally charged client and you're not in the headspace to deal with that person, caller ID is an amazing thing, right? Because I can choose to not take that call, right? I can choose to say, I need a moment to pause and gather my wits, create my plan, right, of how I'm going to respond to the situation. So, I had seen something on Facebook a couple years ago, and it was about practicing the pause. And I don't think a lot of us practice the pause, right? And a lot of us are in a scarcity mindset right now because of the inventory. And so how do we shift out of that? And I think, we need to focus on the fact that more homes listed and sold in 2020 than the previous year. So getting out of the scarcity, right? People have equity. The interest rates are amazing. And so how do I shift out of that and start shouting the positives of the market instead of focusing on, and what happens Roberta, when we focus on what we don't want? More of the same shows up. Right? More of the same shows up. And so when we push against, all we're doing is creating more. And so we've got as a collective, and I see it, you guys, I coach, I've got 13 clients and teams that I coach for workmen across the nation, right? And everybody's in the same boat, even my clients in Canada, right, that aren't even in the United States. Everybody's in the same boat. And as a collective, our industry is putting out this vibe that we're in scarcity, no inventory, no inventory. And the consumer seeing it, the consumer feels it, right? And I actually saw a post, and I think some of you probably heard me say this at the office meeting last week, but I saw a post from a buyer's agent on Facebook basically begging for inventory. And what was the comment? The very first comment from someone who follows her feed said, kind of hard to think about selling your house when you can't find something else to buy. And so if we're putting that out there, the consumer's feeling it. So we've got to, as an industry, we've got to shift our thinking, get out of scarcity and get into abundance, because there's plenty of opportunities out there. But when you push against, you're creating more of what you don't want. Okay. So am I ready to respond? Sorry, going a little tangent there. Okay. So in your materials, here is your emotional chart. And so mine has smiley faces on it. So if you want mine, I'm happy to share it, because mine's a little more fun than with the smiley faces. So identifying. So from happy, right? So here's some additional words to describe what happiness is or what I might be feeling. Okay. If I feel surprised or sad or bad or fearful or angry, right? So if I'm angry, why am I really angry, Daniel? Well, someone let me down. Someone betrayed me, right? I might be jealous, right? I might feel frustrated. And so really spending some time to not just label it with one label, but really dig a little bit deeper with what you're feeling. Okay. And I love the one anxiety, because I feel like everybody just we label so much with anxiety, right? In our society. And so what is it that I'm really feeling? And when I feel anxious and I look at that, I really get honest about what I'm feeling. It's much more than just a blanketed band-aid on the emotion, right? That I'm feeling anxious. And so I love this chart. So you guys have it. Like I said, I'm happy to share my other one if you want that one too. So spend some time, really, get to know these things in here and spend some time. And again, not just about you. So you're understanding you so that you can understand what your clients are feeling, right? And so what are they really feeling in this situation? Okay, so continuing on with the self-awareness. So this is an example, and again, it's in your materials, the full example. The purpose of the exercise, we want you to start to detect and identify and understand the emotions that you have felt, you personally have felt going into a buyer consultation. And so you guys can do the exercise on your own in your materials. This is just an example of what the client's experience might be, and then what are you feeling in that? Okay, so the client might feel scared and excited, uncomfortable or comfortable, right? Anxious or inquisitive. And so what the exercise has you do is you identify. So Monique, the last time you were at a buyer consultation, what were you feeling, right? And then what do you think your client was feeling? Okay. And then there's one for a listing appointment as well. So take the time to do the exercises. You guys think it's really powerful content for opening you up to understand what the client might be feeling, right? And then also setting you up with a plan. If you're feeling anxious and overwhelmed going into a buyer consultation, then we need to do a coaching call and help you work through that to build your confidence, right? And get you on the right path. Because if you're feeling anxious and scared, the client can feel that. They may not be able to identify what it is, but they're feeling your vibe, right? They know that you're uncomfortable. And so we want to make sure that we are helping set you up so that you're in check, right? We can self-regulate our emotions. Okay. Now being excited, that's a good one, right? Being enthusiastic and ready to go and ready to help them. I think that's a good feeling to have, but feeling scared, we want to work on that. Okay. So take the time to complete the quizzes in there. So here's the listing conversation as well, an example in there for you guys. And I think, for all of us, you go on a cold listing appointment, you're going to have some nerves, right? You're going to have a little bit of anxiety. But, one of my great mentors told me that fear is the same emotion in the body. It's the same sensation in the body as excitement. It's just how we identify it. And so whenever I get nervous, that's what I tell myself, right? If I get nervous or scared or, stage fright, for example, nope, this is the same feeling as excitement, right? And when I can do that and shift it, those are the days when I'm on fire, right? Because that excitement fuels me, right? So if really, I love that, right? Fear is the same emotion as excitement. It's just how we label it. All right, so continuing on. So identify your motivators and the level of aspiration. So inside, if you guys have taken momentum, you've seen this slide before, right? So this comes from the Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So there's a reason why 3/4 of this are not work, right? Because we don't work. That's not our sole purpose in life. We work to fund our life, right? And our life is our aspirations that are around yourself, your relationships, right? And that's the time and the money that you need. And then we have our work, right? So where we want you to be at is being the passionate right here, right? So want I want it, but I'm not willing to do anything for it. I don't have the motivation to do it. Desire, I'll do it as long as it remains easy, right? Or convenient and comfortable. And then obsession, we don't want that, right? Because that takes over, that leads to divorce and all kinds of unhealthy things, right? So we don't want it to be an obsession, but we do want you to be passionate. We want you to have that attitude that I get to do this, right? I get to get up every day and go be a servant. And so I'm okay being uncomfortable because I know that there's no growth without discomfort, right? I'm willing to make some sacrifices and I'm willing to stay focused. You take Nate, for example. I don't think there's another human being in this industry, at least the one that I've met, that is as passionate about real estate as that man. And he wears a lot of hats, right? He's got a lot of pressure on him, but yet every day he gets up and he's just tenacious of looking for ways to not only serve his clients but serve us as the agents in the company, right? And I think for 30 plus years, almost 35 years, to have that level of passion is just, it's inspirational. And so I know for me, there's been times when I'm like, I'm going to go work at Starbucks. I can't do this anymore, right? And have those moments, right, where you're just like, this is too hard. But obviously 24 years in, I'm still passionate about it. So being willing to suffer, right? Get uncomfortable. Okay, so let's dive into what the steps are. So we have the word clear, right? So we're going to break it down. We're going to start with CLE. And so we're going to practice each of those questions. So am I calm? Am I in a calm state, right? Am I level-headed? And then what's the E stand for? Am I emotionally charged? Okay, so we want to write those questions down. You're going to start every day. And this is how you have to seek to understand yourself first before I can apply it to my real estate practice. So I'm going to journal. The exercise is journaling every day. So start with your daily activities and the emotions that you're encountering. How did you handle them? What would you have done differently? And then what will you do differently tomorrow or to improve on today? Okay. The daily intentional self-reflection and meditation. So focus on spending intentional time every day reflecting on your motivations and your values. Evaluate your choices based on your emotions that you've encountered. And then have gratitude towards the things that you saw or the things that you created, right? And so gratitude, you guys, is such a powerful thing. It's a gift, really, to have gratitude, and to be grateful for just even as simple as having clean drinking water, right? And think about all the things that we could be grateful for. And what I love about gratitude is that when you're in a space of gratitude, there's so many things that can't exist, right? You can't be low vibe and high vibe at the same time, right? So when we're in a space of gratitude, more things come to us, right? We're just more open, and we see the world through a different lens when we have gratitude. And then identify and write down your motivators and drivers in your life, right? So what's your North Star? Why are you doing this, Roberta? And what's the why behind it? Because when we have a why, then we can attach the activities to it. That's when we become passionate, right? Is the why. The why is the driving force. And I would challenge you that it's not necessarily about how many houses you're selling. Yes, that's a part of it. We got to identify the how, the what, right? The when. But the why is so much bigger than that. It's more than that. And maybe it's, college for your kids. Maybe it's a vacation you want to go, or a bucket list. Maybe it's, I don't know, fill in the blanks of what it is, but it's so much more than just the number of houses that we're selling. Okay. And it's not even necessarily about the awards either, right? We just made that announcement, and congratulations to those of you who made the awards list. Pretty exciting stuff, but it's not even about that. Right? It's what does the money do for our life, right? What does it fund? How do I make a difference in the world? So this is your guys' homework, right? This is the activity. If you want to start tapping into your emotional intelligence, daily practice, right? Asking those questions, meditation, space of gratitude, right? And then what's my why? Really sitting with your why and getting clear about it, and then hang out with it, right? You know what it is, hang out with it and have some fun with it.
What's the L again? Sorry, CLE.
The L is am I level-headed? So it's calm. Am I calm? Am I level-headed? Am I emotionally charged?
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. And then we're going to talk about the other two letters too. So self-regulation is defined as the ability to control one's feelings and impulses in order to prevent negatively disrupting the emotional state of others. Right? That's important, right? It's of other people, because when I come in and I'm charged and I'm spewing my stuff, right? It's not affecting me necessarily. It's affecting those that I'm vomiting on, right? So this ability also dictates how well a person can emotionally adapt to changing situations. I personally hate change, right? Mitchell moved something in the house and it freaks me out. I'm like, why do you do that, right? Don't move stuff around, even though it's so silly, right? Because it's just a piece of furniture or a whatever, right? It's insignificant, but it freaks me out because I don't like change. Okay, so our ability to control, right, the impulses, so that we can stop vomiting on people around us. Okay, so the next two letters, the A and the R. So do I have a plan for my approach? And then am I ready to respond? And so you may have the plan, but I'm not quite ready to respond, right? I got the plan, I know what I should do, but I'm not ready to respond. And I will tell you, practicing the pause is huge. Especially in emotionally charged situations. We're all intuitive people by nature, whether you realize that or not. We all have gut instincts, right? My mom used to say it was her motherly instinct. Well, it's your intuition, right? And the more that you tap into your intuition or your gut feel, the more that it will respond to you. And so you practice the pause, the situation that's difficult, the answer will come to you, and then you'll be able to deal with that situation better than if you just reacted, right? The knee-jerk reaction. And so I know that in our market, time is of essence, right? And so sometimes you may feel pressure to respond right away, but even if you practice the pause for 5 minutes, it might make a difference. Okay. Just getting into the space of what's really the right answer, what's really the best way to handle the situation. Okay. So you got, here's your acronym is clear, right? So calm, level-headed, am I emotionally charged? Do I have a plan? And then am I ready? Okay. Once again, might have a plan, but I'm not ready to deploy it. Okay. So it's important to have the distinction between the two of those. All right, so the truth, the next time you face an undesirable emotion, before you respond to yourself, will my response or reaction disrupt the emotional state of myself or those around me? If the answer is yes, or even potentially, then configure the approach to be more effective that leverages your self-awareness and growth, okay? Establishing clear mindfulness and awareness to your emotions puts you in a mindset of how you might feel if you were in your client's shoes hearing the response. And so let's talk about that. Think about a difficult counteroffer, or you got to tell the client that they didn't get their offer accepted, right? And so how do we deliver that information? Kyle Clayton shared with me, he has a first-time home buyer he's working with, and they were in escrow, about ready to close, like a week out from closing, and found out that they couldn't, what was it? Oh, they couldn't park on the street. The HOA did not allow them to park on the street. And they were planning on renting out the spare bedroom to help pay for the house. And so this young guy locked himself in his room for a whole day, didn't come out, had a complete meltdown, right? He's like 23, and said he was never going to buy a house, that it was too hard, the emotions were too much, right? And so we talked about that, right? And Kyle said, I didn't think I delivered the news in a bad way. Like, we made a decision together based on the fact that they needed to be able to park on the street, and that this wasn't the right house for them. And fortunately, the kid has since, changed his mind, and he's back in the game, but he was emotionally charged, right? And so Kyle and I had a discussion of how could we have done that differently, of presenting that information. And so got to think about that when we deliver news to people. What's going to be their response, right? Am I doing this in the best way that helps them, right? It's not about you, it's about them, right? Does that make sense, everybody? Okay. I remember when the day that Kurt Cobain died, and if you know who he is, he's the lead singer of an amazing band called Nirvana that was huge in the 90s. And I was in high school, and I walked in from lunch break into my English class, and my friend, she was a huge Nirvana fan, and I said, "Hey Trish, did you hear the news that Kurt died?" And I didn't think I said it abruptly or terrible or anything, but I don't know. She ran from the room crying and left school for the day because she was so upset about the news of Kurt Cobain. And I always think about that moment. It sticks with me all these years later, and I graduated in 1994. It sticks with me in my delivery of things. Like, I look back at that and I felt horrible because I wasn't taking into consideration her feelings in that situation, right? I just blurted it out, heard it on the news, I just blurted it out, and caused her to have an emotional reaction to that wasn't positive, right? So like I said, that sticks with me, and I'm always mindful of how am I saying this so that is it going to be well received by that person. All right. Okay, so continuing on with self-regulation and management. So how do we handle the situations? And so So when we talk about regulating our emotions, and how we handle situations dealing with other people in the transaction. So number one, the typical response is, do I defend myself? Do I defend myself or others, right? Do we make excuses? Do we minimize the problem? So, oh, it's not that big of a deal, right? Kyle could have minimized the problem with the parking on the street and encouraged that guy to move forward with the transaction. And would that have been a good thing for him? I don't know, probably not, right? It didn't realize the end goal of what they wanted to do with that property, okay? Do we attempt to rationalize? Do we sidestep the issue? Sidestep the issue ends up with problems where we have to use our risk management, right? And so we don't want to sidestep the issue, because then that leads to lawsuits, right, Roberta? And so when we sidestep that stuff, where we try to minimize it, you minimize something. We just settled that lawsuit with a former farmer buyer's agent on a team, and at the agent did the right thing, right? And that ultimately is why we won the case. But she could have minimized the problem, and that would have caused us to lose the case, right? It was a mold situation. So anyway, the last thing is, then do we shift blame? Do we blame the listing agent? Do we blame the title company? Do we blame the lender, right? Because at the end of the day, who does the client remember? They don't remember the title company. They don't remember the lender. They remember you, Monique. You were the one that referred them to those people, so they remember you. So, and it's easy to do, you guys. It's easy to shift the blame. It's way harder to take the responsibility, right? To take ownership of it. There's a great book called The Oz Principle, and it talks about above the line and below the line behavior and thinking. It's a great read on that, because it's a very thin line. It's like one strand of hair is the thin line of what's above the line and below the line. So all of these are below the line thinking and behavior, right? So when I think about below, I think of below the belt, right? Kicking someone in the groin, and that behavior, that's what my mind goes to when I think about above the line and below the line. And so if you think about that, even in like wrestling and certain sports, they can't have both below the line kicking, right? And so when we apply that, like that mindset is, that am I in the below the line thinking? And so am I defending myself, right? Am I making excuses? Am I minimizing? Am I attempting to rationalize, right? Did I sidestep it all together, just don't want to deal with it? Or did I blame somebody else? And so you want to ask yourself is, how does my client feel if I took the typical response to these situations? If they're not going to feel very good. And it could potentially ruin the relationship for future business, right? Or future referrals. And so ultimately you have to protect their trust in you with your life, because at the end of the day, that is the most important thing, is that the client trusts you. Right? They trust you 100%, because they're trusting you with the biggest financial decision they're making at this current state in their life. Right? Or, maybe there's a divorce or a health situation, right? There's so many other things that require our trust, right? Require us to be their realtor. And right now there's so many things attacking our industry with all these iBuyers. There's another one that popped up in the Phoenix market. I forget the name of it. It starts with an R. It started showing up in my Google searches after Tom Clayton and I had a conversation about it. I emailed Shannon, and then it started showing up in my Google. So pretty crazy, but I swear they're listening to you on your phone. So anyway, we've got so many things attacking our industry. And I would even say we're attacking ourselves, right? With our scarcity mindset and the low inventory, and us talking about that so much, right? We're attacking ourselves. And so we've got to shift out of that, right? And be really mindful about what you're putting out on social media and what's the vibe you're putting out there. I saw it again the other day. Someone put, this house had 93 offers, and now they did take it and spin it. I should retract that, because they made it a storyboard about how that agent won out of 93 offers and what they did for the client to win that. So that's the messaging we need to put out. We need to protect our industry, protect our commissions, because at the end of the day, the consumer needs us. They need us, no matter what technology is out there, no matter what iBuyers out there, no matter what interest rates are, who's in the White House. The consumer needs us as their realtor to protect them. Okay. All right. So truth, business should not be confused with busyness. Do we get caught up in the minutia, Lenore?
Oh,
And
God.
things that are not money-making activities, and we're busy, right? So as we attempt, as our productivity increases, we should spread ourselves thin in an attempt to accomplish all our goals. Okay. And again, referencing here, you guys can go read more about that if you want to. So yeah, busyness should not be confused with busyness. And so challenge yourself. Think about the activities that you're doing. And remember, if you're saying yes to something, you're saying no to something else. And that something else could be your baby, Monique, right? Your husband or your significant others, whoever's in your life that's important to you. If you're, and also all the other tasks that need to be done. It's fascinating to me that as an industry, the one thing that we should be doing consistently every single day is prospecting. And it's the one thing that agents will blow off in a New York second, right? I don't understand that. I really don't. For me, I want to get my prospecting done first thing in the day so that I'm freed up to go sell real estate, right? And so, and your people want to hear from you. They want to hear from you, okay? So focus on, challenge your activities, right? Make sure you're doing money-making activities. Okay, so continuing on here. So further assess your daily self-reflection and journaling, okay? So reflect, and then ask yourself, what can I do differently, right? How can I improve? How can I create more of an optimal experience for yourself as well as for your client, okay? The intentional meditation, I would say 10 to 15 minutes. If you don't meditate now, I would aim for 5 minutes, because 10 to 15 minutes as a new person meditating is really hard to do. It's just it's hard, and you won't succeed at it, so you won't commit to doing it. There's a lot of different apps out there. I know Christy Kohlberg likes the one called Headspace. There's some sound, like just white noises ones that you can get out there. I like the YouTube ones, although I'm told that the white noise ones are better because you're just literally focusing on nothing versus a guided meditation. But there's a YouTube channel called Power Thoughts, and I love his voice, and I love just his content. And there's literally a 5-minute get your day started positive guided meditation that you can do. And when I do that, I feel amazing. It's just really good. So I think the concept of 10 to 15 is fantastic, but I think for most of us, if we could just do 5 minutes every day, it would make a difference, and then work up to that 10 or 15 minutes. Okay. So set yourself up for success if you're not currently meditating. Okay. And meditation, does that seem too hoo-ha for some of us? Maybe. And so maybe you don't call it meditation. If that doesn't align with you and your spirituality, then don't call it that. It's just your quiet time. All right. It's your quiet space to just do your inner reflection. Okay. And then, so the A, right, the question, the approach. So we want to implement the approach into your daily practice. So now you have another question to help you become more in tune and being able to utilize that in your daily practice. So start adding this question into your daily scenarios. So focus each morning and in the evening to reflect on the changes that you felt and where did they come from. So this is not a one and done, right? This is something you implement into your daily practice. And even starting your day out with focusing the first hour on what builds you up as a human being, right? The Miracle Morning is a fantastic read and a fantastic concept of how do I set myself up for success every day, right? And you guys can go read the book. He tells you in chapter 2 what the Miracle Morning is, so it's an easy read. He even has one for realtors if you want to read that one. Okay, so the client approach. So now how do we implement this into the client, right? And so thinking about their emotions, where they're at, right? And then how am I ready to deal with them? Am I in a calm state? Do I feel level-headed? Am I emotionally charged, right? You just had a difficult conversation with a listing agent or a buyer's agent. Bring your emotions down, right? I've been guilty of that, where I'll, paint the listing agent in a bad light, not intentionally, but because I'm mad, right, about the situation. And so that's not a good approach, because now I create, an adversarial relationship for that client. Or it happens a lot with buyers and sellers, right? Think about that. You get a buyer that thinks the seller's a jerk, the seller thinks the buyer's a jerk. And so now we've got this tension throughout the whole transaction. I remember selling a house with solar. And the husband, they were getting divorced. He had 2 grown addict children living in the house that she had to literally drug test every day. Husband just says, I'm done, leaves, moves to Flagstaff. Meanwhile, she's stuck at home dealing with this. And we had solar, which the husband thought was the greatest thing since sliced bread. If y'all know, if you've done a solar deal, it's not the best thing since sliced bread, right? And I literally sold the house for $50,000 more the first week the house was on the market than we actually did when we got done with it, because of the solar. And it was a really emotionally charged situation. And when we finally got the contract, the buyer came in low. We negotiated back and forth. The buyer's agent was really difficult. And so I had to maintain this neutral attitude throughout the whole thing, because the wife was supercharged, going through a divorce, got to deal with the solar, got not only one, but two grown adult children living in the house that are addicts that she has to drug test. Her poor little dogs started to get really stressed out by about halfway through the transaction, to the point where they were charging people and nipping and biting, and like, it was just not normal behavior for the dogs. So to say that this lady her cup was overflowing is the least way to describe that, right? So I remember having to stay really calm in that situation, because I did not like the cross agent. Was not a pleasant person to work with, and so I had to navigate my own emotions. I remember calling Nate and just venting about this woman, because I was so challenged by her, right? I mean, I won't get into the rest of the horror stories that happened in that transaction, but that to me is one example that I can think back in my real estate career and having to really self-regulate my emotions, because I was charged, right? And I had to maintain neutral for my client, right? Because if I would have come in there and been like, the seller's or the buyer's a jerk, your ex-husband's a jerk, right? I couldn't do that, right? I had to maintain that so that I could represent her and get her to the finish line. Okay. All right.
Can I say something real quick, Sarah? Sure. You know, coming from the industry that I come from, I find it interesting that so many real estate transactions, the realtors, the buyers, the sellers, whomever, think that this is an adversarial transaction.
Yeah.
And it is not. And I think that we could do a lot more in communicating with our clients to let them know this is not adversarial. In fact, we should be above board and friendly. We want information. We want to know what they know. We want to know why they love this house, why they're selling this house. We want them to know why you're buying the house. I think that takes a lot of emotional intelligence to, the problem I guess, is it comes down to we're representing our clients, and that gets all mixed up with the theory that we're taking them to court in an adversarial position, and we are not. And it's, I see it so often on all these transactions, and the best transactions I've ever had is the ones where, not that I advocated every single time because it's not necessary, but there are times when buyer and seller just sit down at the table and talk, and it works out great. I had a client, and I'll shut up, but I had a client who said, that's so cool. You sold our house last year. Did you know I'm still friends with the buyer? We go to breakfast. They have it's almost a business relationship now. We go to breakfast once a month, and I look forward to it. I can't wait.
That's awesome.
And I just really feel so awesome about that, that they've shared that with me. So anyway, I'll get off my high horse, but this is not going to court. I promise you, none of this is adversarial, and our emotional intelligence should kick in and let all of our clients be they don't all have to sit at the table and meet, but it's not adversarial by any sense. It's a great opportunity to buy and sell a house.
I love that. That's a great point. And I think we do get into that. I've got to have the lawyer cap and, get into that space of defending our client when in fact we're advocating for them in a positive way. So I love that.
Right.
Yeah, that's great. And good for you. That's a huge testament to who you are as a realtor, that those people are still friends. So that's awesome. Okay, so your EQ strategy for each step in any sales process. So first thing is we got to build a relationship, right? We got to be good at building rapport quickly. I saw something yesterday that said you have 8 seconds. It was in SLAM. I was preparing for a SLAM class on Thursday. You have 8 seconds to make a good impression. It's not a lot of time, right? So
what happened at 30? It used to be 30 seconds.
It's not 30 anymore. It's 8 seconds. So people size you up in 8 seconds, right? So we want to mirror that person's emotions, right? Be the chameleon. Some of the best salespeople in the world, they know how to do that. They know how to read people really quickly, and they mirror them, right? I know when I'm around another Libra, so I'm a Libra for my birthday. When I'm around another Libra, it's almost magnetic. And sometimes if I feel comfortable, I'll ask the person, when's your birthday? And they tell me, I'm like, oh, that's why I like you. I have this immediate connection with other Libras. It's the craziest damn thing. And it's like I could sniff them out. I just know immediately that my connection with this person, they're a Libra, right? And so we think about how we connect with people, right? So we want to plan ahead for the interaction. We want to develop a back pocket question. And a back pocket question is just something, a question that you have, right? You can readily fire it off and it builds rapport, right? I love the Ford script. You guys have heard this before: family, occupation, recreation, dreams. You guys do it naturally already. Think about calling your best friend. What do you do? How's your family doing today? What's going on with work? What plans are you making? Oh, we haven't had any plans because of the pandemic, right? And what are you dreaming about? And so we go through those things naturally, right? So then we want to find the need. Okay, so be open and curious. Clear away the clutter, catch the mood in the room, right? Again, I love what Roberta said is let's make this fun, let's make it engaging, right? It's a fun process. And I think you got to set them up for success. I had shared this in another presentation, but my objective when I work with the buyers, I'm going to do a buyer consultation. And then the very next opportunity we have to go out, I'm putting them in my car and we're going to go look at everything that's on the market that meets their needs. And during the buyer consultation, I'm setting them up for success all the way through that consultation, right? We're talking about everything that's going to happen. I'm giving them permission to act, to make a decision when we go out. I want to show them everything that's available. We're going to identify their top 3. That way I've got 2 backup plans, right? And then we're going to make an offer that day. And I'm telling them that in the consultation that this is the way it's going to go down. And maybe I've just been really lucky in my plan, but I would say 8 out of 10 times that's how it happens, right? And we go out, we look at everything that fits their needs. If we're not on track, we go back, we regroup, right? And we go out, we make an offer, and I've been pretty successful with that. And so I share that with you because you've got to set them up, right? We got to give them the permission to buy and to act. And one of the things I will actually give this script to people, or an affirmation, both buyers and sellers. Someone gave it to me and I use it all the time. So it's the right house, right price, right time. And so for seller, right buyer, right price, right time. Okay. And it's energetically when they don't even know that I'm putting it out. We're going there, right? We're putting it out in the universe, like right buyer, right price, right time, right house, right price, right time. And when they start reciting that makes my job so much easier, because literally right house shows up, the right time, the right price. Okay. And I think all of us need to adapt that mindset right now with the inventory the way that it is. And we need to give our clients that mindset. Okay. And then collectively, and maybe that's why I have been successful with my plan, right? Is that because that's the vibe behind it, is that we're going to go out, we're going to find the right house for the right price on the right day. Right. And so, give them permission to act. Okay. So then avoid giving mixed signals. Okay. We want to align our intention with the impact. The impact is either listing or selling the house. Enhance your communication style. We cannot over communicate, right, throughout a transaction. And for me personally, if my client calls me first, then I've let them down. So I want to be the one that calls them first, right? In a transaction, because then it makes I know that my communication's there. They're not wondering, right? They're not in the blinds. They're not in the dark about what's going on. Okay. The hurdles, right? Every real estate transaction, the contract is black and white, but every transaction has hurdles. Okay. Even small hurdles. Some have giant hurdles. So we want to step into their shoes, right? Have empathy, connect with them and have empathy of what are they feeling right now? Are they scared? Are they nervous? Are they anxious? Whatever that is. Okay. And then seek the whole picture. When you have a difficult transaction, oftentimes there's an underlying issue or concern or hurdle. There's something going on that they're not articulating. They might be embarrassed. They may not even be aware, right? I had a deal one time where the seller we just couldn't get the home sold. It was overpriced, and they left. They relocated, so the house was vacant. I went and checked on the house, and lo and behold, on the garage door is a foreclosure notice. And I called my client and I'm like, what's going on? You got something you need to tell me? And they were struggling financially, but she was embarrassed and prideful and didn't want to tell me that. And so we had a conversation, dropped the price, got the home sold, because it was ridiculous. They had plenty of equity. It was ridiculous that they were in pending foreclosure, right? And so they hadn't made their payment in 3 months. And so, she was embarrassed to tell me that. So think about your clients, Lenore. How many of them are embarrassed? You were in the market when the REO market happened. We lost so many clients that went to foreclosure. I looked at Nate's database. There was one year that I went through it. It was like 500 people that had gone to foreclosure and never even raised their hand. They never even called and said, hey, Nate, hey, Sarah, hey, Ben, we're in trouble. They just let their house go to foreclosure, right? And then I forget the percentage of those that did, that we were either successful or unsuccessful in doing a short sale, right? And so people have pride, they have embarrassment, they have shame, right? And so it's our job to step into their shoes and create an environment where they feel like they can trust us with that information. Okay. And so sometimes we have to be the therapist, right? So it's like being a bartender, right? The bartender is a good therapist. Roberta, were you going to add something? You came off mute.
A couple of things. I got distracted because I know that one of your dogs just walked in the door because the door.
Oh, they did. Yeah.
I started giggling, but no, back to that point, and it's old news, but it could be new news, right? I was so frustrated back in the previous recession. And I remember being at the REMAX convention and walking with Nate to a seminar or whatever, and a breakout. And I said, he asked me how I was. And I said, I'm awful. I'm having a hard time because, and I'll use the example, Rick's best friend, we just found out that he's sold his house and didn't bother to call us. And we went, and because that's the way Rick and I are, we went and we researched it. And sure enough, he'd been in foreclosure, and somebody came and just offered him some money to get out of it. And, he didn't even use a realtor. And I know he got shafted by the whole deal. And it was just so distressing. Of course, he called us for the, $2,000 rental to help him get the rental. But I forgot the $1 million house. And it was so frustrating. And so we had, Nate was good in helping me to reframe, and it's stuck with me all this time. And that is, you don't know where people are, whether they're embarrassed or whatever. Sometimes people just don't want you to know their finances.
Yep.
No matter what it is, positive or negative. And
Yep.
and you just got to get over that. And one of the mantras that I use is when I talk to my clients, and I have to do it with myself as well, when somebody goes and sells a house with somebody else, that's okay. It's their money.
Mm-hmm.
It's not my money. It's their money. And I can honor and respect that, in the decision-making process, and I can still be their friend or their family member or, their chief advocate when they come to me for that advocacy.
Right.
So it really, that conversation, whatever that was, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, really was very helpful and has stuck with me.
Right.
To remember where people are. And it's not a personal affront to me that they didn't use me as their realtor to help them. Would have been smart, but they didn't. That's okay. It's okay. They did what they did because they were in their emotional state where they were.
Yep.
Anyway.
I had one of my dear friends sold her house to OfferPad or Open Door. And when I asked her why, I had referred her, this was when my license was with the referral program. I had referred her to someone, and when I asked her why, she said that agent that I referred her to, this girl's got cats, and so she's a single lady with cats, and her cats are her life. And the referral that I gave her did not make her feel like her cats were important, and she didn't want to. She had an expectation of how the showings would go, and the support from the agent, and that did not get met. And so OfferPad don't have to mess with any of that. Right? Cats were fine. Cats didn't have to have the stress of people coming into the house. And so if I had been the one, I would have offered, because I know the significance of her cats. We would have spent time creating a plan on how we were going to deal with the showings in order to accommodate the cats. Right. And so my bad for not communicating that to my referral source of the importance of that. Right. Because this agent would have absolutely accommodated it. Absolutely. But she was clueless as to the importance of that process. Right. And so, it was my mistake. And I was mad because we obviously, all of us didn't get paid. Right. And I didn't get to help her. And so I was mad, but then after I reviewed it and I had my emotional intelligence, right, I was able to look at that and take responsibility that it was my fault. I failed her as the client because I did not convey that very significant detail about her as a person. So yeah, I think it's not their money, can't take it personal. And sometimes people just don't want you to know their affairs. Right. And again, when I went through Nate's database and I found 500 people out of 5,000 or 3,500, whatever it was at the time, something like that, I was shocked. I was literally shocked because I thought, man, we could have helped so many of these people not go to foreclosure, and they just didn't raise their hand, right? It was like the Titanic, they just went down with the sinking ship. So, but good stuff. Thank you for sharing that, Roberta. All right. So the last thing on here is ask for the sale. So we want to lean into our discomfort, right? Take control of your self-talk, and then time. So make time everything. Your self-talk. I have a great suggestion. It's an old book, and it's probably not even on Audible. But What to Say When You Talk to Yourself by Shad Helmstetter. It's one of my favorite reads on self-talk. Like I said, it's probably not even on Audible. I read the book 20 plus years ago. But we have so much negative self-talk that it just rattles all day, and sometimes we're not even conscious of it, right? And it just sits there. And so really challenge your self-talk. And especially when it comes to the low inventory, making money, all those things, we really got to challenge our self-talk, because that we live on this giant planet that truly is conspiring in our best interest. And so, but we walk around as human beings and ignore that and act the opposite, right? And so if you can get into a space of abundance and gratitude, you'll have a fantastic year. My best year in real estate was either 2007 or 2008. It was literally in the eye of the storm when we were losing amazing people out of the industry, and it was bad, right? And I just decided that my perception was my reality. And I actually sold two $700,000 homes. One of them got my name in the paper in Peoria because nothing had sold in that price point, right? And so I just decided that while the sky was falling, that was not going to be my reality. And so I ended up having one of the best years I'd ever had in real estate. So, and it was just because I was set out and determined to not let the sky be falling in my reality. Okay, so in your materials, you have the client approach. So this is another exercise for you to do. So building the relationship, so compliment the person's emotions, right? Plan ahead for the interaction, have your back pocket question. And so the goal with this is to identify the intention behind each stage through the sales process. And at the end, have your own ability to approach each stage adequately and prepared for any emotion that may follow. So there's more questions if you look in your materials than what's on the slide. So I would encourage you to actually go through those things, do the exercise, and think about, what is the client feeling? Okay, so the client approach and the implementation. So we have the social skill, right? We want to build rapport and have a connection with them. We want to know what their motivation is. What's their North Star, right? What is this? And typically, the client wants to know how much money they're going to make and what's the time, right? How long is it going to take? Okay, and then we want to have empathy, so being vulnerable and understanding the emotion. And sometimes, there are thought-provoking questions in your guys' materials that are questions you can actually ask the client. So I would encourage you to, look at those and make them a part of your scripts and dialogues. It's okay, right? It's okay to ask somebody what they're feeling, right? And especially if they're being difficult or they're being cagey, right? It's okay to stop and say, hey, Daniel, I can't answer your prayers if I don't know what you're praying for, right? And just, slow it down and get the emotion. And I don't want to go on the DISC personality rant, but that's always a good tool as well, to be able to present information and really understand their personality style along with their emotional intelligence. Okay. So continuing on with implementing. So we want to communicate. So communicate. Cannot stress this enough, right? You can never over communicate. And then actively listening. Okay. So what does that really mean? So many of us listen to respond that we're not really listening. We've already formulated the answer. We're just waiting for them to stop talking, so it's not rude if we interrupt them. And so it's okay to have that awkward silence while you gather your answer, right? So don't just listen to respond, actively listen and read between the lines. People naturally leak who they are, right? They're telling you what they need and who they are. We're just not listening, right? We're not paying attention to those details. And so it's okay. And if you've done a coaching call with me, there's times when someone will say something to me and I literally I need a second. I gotta formulate my answers, right? Because sometimes those things come up and when you're trying to help someone, right? And so if I'm really listening, it's okay to have that moment of silence, right? And formulate your response. That we want to review our options, right? So we want to look for solutions. What are the options, right? Daniel, before you got on this call, you probably weren't thinking about doing an open house for sale by owner, right? And so we've got to explore all of our options together, right? And look for an approach, look for ways that we can keep this moving forward. Frank used to always say, don't let a deal die on your desk. right? If you got a deal, let's negotiate that thing until it either comes together or we know it's dead, right? So don't let a deal die on your desk. End with a win-win. So the win-win means that it has to be a win for you. It's got to be a win for the client, right? And so when we write an offer that's low, we are sending a message to the seller that the seller has to lose in order for the buyer to win. Right. And so in this market, obviously, I don't think any of you guys are writing lowball offers, but if you are, we need to have a conversation offline. So it has to be a win-win for everybody, right? So all parties involved. Okay. Because otherwise it doesn't feel good. If you're winning and they're not, or vice versa, it doesn't feel good. Okay, so building the relationship, again, in your materials, you have these steps, right? So going through 1 through 5 in the steps, right? So here's some samples of back pocket questions too. I want to thank you for investing your valuable time with me today. It's important that you know I'm only interested in making sure your needs or aspirations are met and that we have a win-win collaborative relationship. Is that fair? And then the second one is, my goal is to ensure that those who work with me make the most informed, intelligent decision possible. Do you feel that that is my intention? So just, a question that you can ask that goes deeper with the conversation. Okay, so continuing, we want to, the thing I want to really emphasize here is number 4 is leverage care. So care stands for calm. Oh gosh, I wrote it down. Hold on. So I'm sorry, communicate, actively listen, review the options, and end with a win-win. So that's kind of the whole process of how do we implement this for the client. Okay, so communication, I'm actively listening, review the options. What are my options in this situation? And again, the contract's black and white, but no real estate transaction's ever the same, right? And then end with the win-win. Okay, so putting it all together. So understanding, so becoming more self-aware. So we want to manage and self-regulate, right? Manage how I'm feeling so I'm not spewing all over everyone. And then use, right? So we want to grow our social skills, identify your motivations, and become more empathetic. I actually have a new client. They're on my schedule this afternoon, and she's so funny because she's such a high D that it's her and her cousin that run this brokerage. And she's like, I let my cousin deal with the emotional side of things because I can't deal with all those feelings. And so she was very, very blunt about that. Right. And so I'm sure some of you relate to that, right? Like, I don't want to deal with feelings. And so that the unfortunate part about that is that that's who you are. But when you put your realtor hat on, you do have to have some empathy, right? Now that doesn't mean you cry with your buyers or sellers, right? You don't have to go there unless you want to, but we can all have a little bit more empathy, just in life in general, right? I think we can have some more empathy, and then mindfulness, right? Self-assessment, self-reflection. What's our core motivations, right? And then actively listening. And then our delayed gratification. So again, actively listening, super important, you guys, that we get good at that. Okay, so your emotional intelligence growth system. So begin to implement the CLE questions. So am I calm, level-headed, or emotionally charged into your daily practice? Okay, you want to write that down, those 3 questions down, and then write about it every day. Right? How are you feeling? So your daily journaling. And then how did you handle them? What could you have done differently? What will you do different tomorrow? And then your daily reflection or meditation. So focus your intentional time every day. And again, start out with 5 minutes, start out slow, and then build up. So evaluate your choices based on the emotions that you encountered. And then evaluate and note your gratitude towards things that you saw or the actions that you took. Okay. And then identify and write out your motivators, your drive. So really spend time with your North Star. Why am I doing this? Okay. And get clear about that. Self-regulation. So we want to reflect on your daily journaling and create new strategies. So how could you create a more optimal experience for yourself? Okay, what were your triggers? I think that's super important to identify triggers. If you're having an anxious day or a stressful day, what was the trigger? Okay, can I eliminate the trigger? What is the trigger teaching me? Every emotional situation is showing up to teach us something. And so can we be humble enough to learn from it, right, and grow from it? And then intentional meditation, again, start out with 5. So focus your thoughts and energy coursing through your body and continue your self-awareness. So detect, identify, and understand. When you first start meditating, your mind will drift, and then you'll have to come back, right? Your mind will drift. You got to come back. And so don't get into that judgment space of, oh, I can't do this. It's too hard. I'm stupid. I lack discipline. I lack focus, right? Just come back, right? It's okay. You'll think about all the crap you have on your list. Nope, come back. You'll think about the noise coming from your ceiling fan. Why is that making that? Nope, come back, right? And so just, don't be judgmental when you start out. That's kind of the point I'm making, is don't be judgmental. Then implement the A question into your approach. So do I have an approach? Okay. So asking that and going a little bit deeper with the emotions. Okay. So by adding this question to your daily scenario each morning and evening to reflect on the changes that you felt and where they came from. All right, so client implementation. So how am I doing on time? I'm good. Okay, so implementing the clear question into your daily practice. Okay, so for the client, what is the clear? So it's the calm, level-headed, emotionally charged approach, and am I ready to take action? So we want to implement the R into your scenarios. Okay, so identify the area of improvement for next time. Document your journey through each real estate transaction to begin growing your skills and knowledge of emotions. And so we can take, I think you should be doing this in general, but surveying the client right at the end of a transaction. I think some of you probably already do that, but we got to take that feedback and learn from it and improve our process. I had feedback from a coaching client about 3 weeks ago. And at first I was like kind of a little bit irritated about it, but then I was like, nope, I have an opportunity to grow as a coach and take this feedback and be better. Right. And so I had to work through that and realize that, okay. And, and kind of take responsibility, right? That this is what the client needs. I'm not meeting it. And so I need to change that. Right. And so when we survey our clients in a real estate transaction, one, it helps to preserve the relationship. If someone goes away mad or upset or disappointed, we don't know it. And how can we preserve that relationship? They won't use you again. Okay. Number two, we got an opportunity to fix it and be the hero in the story, right? And number three, we have an opportunity to grow as a human being, right? Improve our practice, improve our emotional intelligence, right? And so I think surveying the transaction, not only from their perspective, but your own perspective. If you're on a team, have a team powwow around the transaction. What did we do right? How did we win with this? Or how can we improve, right? And so take the time to level up, right? Go to the next level in your game by being honest about that. Okay. And then leverage care. So again, care is communicate, actively listen, review the options, and end with a win. Okay. Yeah, surveys are powerful. I remember getting a survey one time that actually almost caused me to stop selling real estate, right? So, but it obviously didn't. So I had to take the time really to dive into that and look at it and say, okay, how did I fail this person? And it was an expectation that they had from a previous experience with another agent that had I asked one simple question, and I don't remember what it is now, it was 100 years ago, but if I'd asked one simple question, they would have had a completely different experience. And it was a question, Lenore, that I could have easily asked, right? But I didn't know what the expectation was. And so I love the script of how do I win with you and how do I lose with you? If I was going to create an amazing experience for you, what's something that we would need to do? Right. And so really asking those questions. So let's have a little discussion. What do you guys think? Dia, did you get, oh, she's not on the call anymore. I'll have to make sure she gets that. But what do you guys think? Any questions, any comments? What were your takeaways?
Well, I like how you say, how do I win with you, lose with you? Because, and then ask me, I think we all are intuitive people. So we know we have those emotional clients or emotional, that's obviously, but the other thing I think I like to ask customers is like, we've talked a lot about your transaction. What have you not told me that I need to know?
I love that. That's a brilliant question because that opens the door for any things that haven't been discovered yet, right?
And then in my cheat version of that, which is a bad one, is I say, what other questions do you have for me? But really the one like, what have you told me? What have you not told me that I really need to know is even better because it can be a 20-minute because I'm one that talks too much. It's great for me to shut up and let them talk.
Well, and so for those of you who don't know Daniel's backstory, he was a DJ, professional DJ before COVID hit. And so, if you're DJing a wedding and there's some expectation that bride has, I would guess that would probably not be real favorable during the wedding and or after for future business, right? Because you don't get a do-over necessarily, or you hope you don't have a do-over on your wedding day. Some of us did, but yeah, so that's a good question. So what's something that I don't know that I need to know? I love that. What other takeaways?
I have two. I'll piggyback on what Daniel just said. I always, especially in this market, I'm showing my client a house or two every single day, just trying to, and writing offers every single time. And so for the client, I ask, okay, now that we've seen a dozen houses, has anything changed in terms of what we're looking for or what the expectation is? And so I have conversations like that. I then also have to have the conversation with the other agent, some of whom are more professional than others, as we know, and say, look, share with me why we didn't get that offer. Give me some information, some feedback. Because I now need to communicate that with my client so that he understands where we are in this market and what the necessary tools are that we need to be successful. Some of the agents are responsive to that, some are not, but I try every time to open that up. And then the big feedback from the actual class, as you know, Sarah, I can't stand journaling. It's just whatever. But you give it this class gives it a different approach that maybe I would consider, which is a big step for me.
Good.
And that is to sit down and do the CLE, you know.
Yeah.
Where am I today? I probably do that in my head, but that journaling aspect is an interesting way to approach that. So that was my takeaway.
Awesome. I love that. If we could get you to journal, anything that will work. So that's awesome.
And that means Sarah can move mountains.
Yes,
Sarah,
Lenore.
can I say something after?
Sure.
Okay. I guess since this class is about, you know, the emotions of real estate, I've got both. There's a part of me that I'm really happy that I've actually been using a lot of this. But then there's another part of me that thinks, my God, you've been doing this for 34 years and you didn't know half of this. So you're never too old, to learn. It's never too late to start doing some of this stuff. And one of the things, you filled my head with so much. But one of the things that I wanted to say that I have actually used was the Frank saying, don't let a deal die on your desk, to the point that my husband even knows it and repeats it. And I've actually used it in a couple of times and have had it work. So it really did impress me. I've used it. It's worked. And so I've got to go back and pull out all these things that you've been talking about and start using them.
Awesome. I love that. Thanks for sharing. So yeah, that's Frank's been retired for a couple of years, so but he used to actually do a class on it, right? He used to actually talk about all the ways to negotiate. And so little different market that we're in today. But Mary, what was your takeaway?
Well, I like Daniel's and Roberta's, way of asking, number one, what could I have done better? And number two, with buyers, how do how have your needs changed, or how, I don't know. What did you say, Roberta?
Now that we've looked at
now that we've seen a dozen houses,
yeah,
we're not winning is my point. Now that we've seen a dozen houses, is there anything in our search that has changed? Anything in your opinion that's changed for what we're looking for?
Right, exactly. It's hard.
One thing that I want to share, just you spurred a thought that I had from Leverage. They were talking about how to find inventory, and that we need to be a little bit more, maybe you guys are already doing this, but be more generic in your searching, so that you can find stuff that maybe might not come up. If someone says they need a 4-bedroom, can we look at 3s with lofts and dens and options like that, and kind of being a little bit broader stroke in that. And it was one of the coaches that presented, and he talked about himself that the one thing he's always wanted in a house, and he's a 50-something-year-old guy, is a 3-car garage. And in every house he's owned in 50 years, he's never had a 3-car garage, but it's always been the one criteria that he wants. And he shared, because what was more important in buying the house was that his wife and his daughters were happy. Yeah. And so he's foregone the 3-car garage his whole life. And so when we think about what we're searching for, for people, try to be a little bit more generic, so that, you can find stuff that maybe might not have been in their initial criteria, but it's the perfect house. And I used to always throw in a ringer. And when I say a ringer, I'll tell you a quick story, and then if Jennifer or Monique want to chime in, you guys are both in witness protection. But I had this buyer when Nate was working this buyer, and she looked like Elvira and he looked like Patrick Swayze. And they had to have a house in Arrowhead Lakes, had to be on the lake, right? And they had very specific criteria. And Nate was super frustrated. He was like, "You take him out, Sarah. Somebody else needs to show him." So I spend some time with her, and as I'm getting to know her and she's telling me about their life, we had this listing that was on the market in Arrowhead Lakes, but it was on an interior lot. Now, Mary, if you stood on the balcony and you looked over the tree line, you could see the lake, right? But this house fit her criteria, and more importantly, fit her children's life better, right? It was a custom home. This house was really cool. It was a beautiful property. And as I was showing, her name was Kathy. I said, Kathy, I'm like, you really need to go look at this house. I know that you want to be on Arrowhead Lakes, but everything else from what you're telling me. And she, was like, okay, fine, Sarah, I'll go look at it. And guess what house they bought? That house, because being on the lake, they were in the lakes, but they weren't on the lake. But because the house fit all the other needs of her life, she forewent the lake lot, right? And so I learned a very valuable lesson in that, is to read between the lines. Throw in that ringer, because 9 times out of 10, the ringer is the one that they end up buying because it meets their needs. And I've listened to their needs, and I know the market because I'm out previewing and I'm familiar with things, right? And so, yeah, so that's a great story to that. So always, trust your gut. And I think we've gotten lazy as an industry. We put them on a portal, right? And we just let the searches go. And then we let the client pick which houses they want to see based on what? Photos. And what if the photos suck? You guys have heard my story, my sister-in-law who rented a property and lived in it for 4 years, but I sent that house to her no less than a half dozen times, and she kept skipping it because the photos sucked. And when they moved out, the agent used the same damn crappy photos, which I'm shocked by that. But anyway, 4 years they lived there, and that was a rental. So we can't be lazy, right? Let the client pick some, but you need to be doing your job too and pick the properties that are going to be good fits, right? Because the photos don't always do it justice, right? So Jennifer or Monique, before we wrap up, you got any takeaways you want to share? I don't know where you're at.
Yeah, the daily meditations, I think, are key. I've been prior to this class, and one of the reasons why I wanted to kind of take this class is I've been trying to, just get better at exploring my emotions, um, dealing with Samuel's emotions, all of that. And so, but it carries over into our business. And so I think, implementing the daily meditation practices will definitely be a key thing in helping me identify mine and my clients' emotions.
Awesome.
So,
I love that. Yeah, you
mhm.
just got to start out slow, right? And just put it in your phone, right? Make it a reminder that you're going to do it. Hi, that you're going to do it every day. So
Yeah.
awesome. All right, Jennifer, I know you're at work, so that's okay. All right, that's all I got for you guys. Thanks for the share. Thanks for your transparency. And what do we got going on? We got a broker open or broker forum. Shannon, we've decided to do topics in the broker open forum. So it's going to be multiple offers. Hot topic there. So definitely check that out, 2:00 on Wednesday. And then Thursday's slam, which I don't think any of you guys are taking slam with me. So, but definitely tune into the broker forum. And the next Bouge class, Alex is going to be going in and checking settings and helping you guys make sure that your lead stuff is set up right. Some agents have said they're not getting leads. I've gotten 3 in the last 2 weeks. And so make sure if you're not getting leads through Bouge, go to that class and make sure all your stuff is set. Okay. And I think that's next Wednesday.
Okay.
All right. You guys take care, stay safe, and I'll see you on the next one. Okay.
Thanks, Sarah.
Bye, thanks.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.